Good evening, Samsung. I hope some Samsung people are gonna watch tonight's broadcast. 삼성 분 나중에 보시는 분들 아니면 이제 지금 라이브 방송에 보시는 분들 계셨으면 좋겠어요. 오늘 재밌는 얘기 많이 할 거예요. I'm gonna be talking about some very interesting things that I've been looking into while I researched what Samsung and their interests in Solana in this hackathon, this Riptide hackathon are, and some very interesting connections, right? As a result of this, 이제 이 삼성이 얘네들이 이제 이 솔라나 hackathon에 관심이 있으니까 이제 연결된 일이 되게 많아요. 그래서 그런 거 다 같이 볼 거예요. 그렇지만 오늘은 죄송하지만 영어로 할 거예요. 또다시 말씀하는데 우리 구독자들이 영어 못하면 이제 댓글에 영어 부탁 하면 제가 라이브 해석해 줄게요. 어 또다시 말씀하는데 우리 구독자들이 영어 못하면 솔라나 그냥 투자하지 마세요. 솔직히 말하면. 왜냐면 우리 구독자들이 정보 너무 잘 모르니까 진짜 솔라나에 지혜로운 투자하고 싶으면 영어 좀 공부하고 투자하세요, 제발. Right? Um, I'm going to be doing this mostly in English. I told my Korean subscribers if they need to translate, they can ask for a translate live. But I'm going to be doing this in English because, again, I'm going to be talking about some important things that are related to this announcement. All the important people in Solana, all the important people in Samsung, they're all going to watch this. They're all going to understand what I'm talking about in English. It's my subscribers who have no idea what's going to go on when it comes to a lot of the things that I talk about. And again, it's just to highlight the massive information asymmetry involved in investing in crypto. That's part of the reason why I'm consciously making these kinds of decisions when I do these broadcasts, right? And you all know what I'm talking about. All the people involved in Solana and Samsung and all those people, you all know what I'm talking about. So this is how it's going to be, right? This is how it's going to be, right? You play your games, I play my games as well, right? Uh, you do your thing, I do my thing, right? So I'm going to start by, of course, talking about this Riptide hackathon, right? So a lot of people were made aware of this announcement, right? So there's this big hackathon. It's called Riptide, right? Now, here's the really interesting thing about this, right? This new hackathon called Riptide was announced quite recently. It's this announcement is only 1 day old, right? This announcement has only been out for a day, right? Now, my subscribers know this is kind of peculiar. The timing of this announcement is extremely particular. Why am I saying this is particular? Well, everyone knows on my channel, my subscribers know, there was another Serum Convergence hackathon, right? That was hosted by Serum and Wormhole. Wormhole was just hacked for $250 million. Jump Crypto stepped in, Kanav stepped in, and they put in 300 or 250 million or whatever it was, 350 million, 250 million of their own money to cover this thing, right? So here's the thing. I'm not this is not 100% I have no, 100% uh, know-how of what goes behind closed doors in Solana, right? I can only guess as to the timing of certain events that are very interesting, right? You just got to think carefully about the timing, right? Why am I saying this? Well, the thing came out, like I just mentioned, with the wormhole hack, right? They got hacked for 250 million, right? Jump stepped in. This now is tainted because of that hack, right? You have to know that this convergence hackathon was tainted because of that hack. It's extremely damaging from a PR perspective for something like this to be going on when this was initially announced as a cross-chain hackathon, right? So this was some kind of big cross-chain thing with Serum, Solana, Terra, right, and Wormhole. But this just demonstrated how fragile the infrastructure in DeFi is at the moment, no matter how you want to spin it. And there's a couple other things that I'm going to be pointing out as I was researching this that I think my subscribers are going to find very interesting. Some very interesting things that very few people know about, let alone my Korean subscribers, right? The things that I'm going to talk about in this broadcast, the average Korean subscriber is just completely clueless about the type of stuff that I'm going to talking about that I'm going to be talking about today. 100%, 100%, right? I just this is why I always say I feel sorry for my Korean subscribers like so much of the time, right? they have no idea what they're doing, right, when they invest, right? Because they don't know what to look for, right? So again, I just talked about how this hackathon now has that kind of dark cloud hanging over it because this was promoted as a cross-chain deal. What kind of cross-chain dApps are going to come out of this, right? I uploaded a video about this hackathon, right? So in my channel, on my channel, I looked at the initial announcement for the hackathon. You can see all the players who were involved, right? Terra was involved, right? All those people were involved. The announcement that I covered was back here. I mean, such a long time ago, right? I covered this shit such a long time ago, like 2 months ago, basically. I was covering this 2 months ago, right? So if you're curious about what I was looking at back then, you can look here, right? So this was the thing that I covered 2 months ago on my channel, right? Now you got this thing kind of is now kind of like in hot water, right? Because of the recent hack, right? So again, Serum, Wormhole, Psi Options, Pith, Atrix, Terra were all involved, right? Um, Now here's the thing, right? You had a lot of these important players in Solana and in these other chains who are involved, right? Toquan is involved, right? Toquan's here from was part of this from Terra, right? Of course, you had these morons like Matt, these jokers, these F tier analysts, and those guys over at Sino. You had these guys involved, right? Now you had a lot of Jump people involved, right? Keon from Jump, Amy from FTX. Those were the people who launched that massive gaming fund that they announced recently. So they had that massive gaming fund, right? So they have an interest. FTX has an interest in this, right? Of course, you have Reciprocal. Reciprocal were one of the backers of Solrise, which I endorsed on my channel, right? So you have a, like a plethora of all these interests, right? From all the people in Solana and all the connected people, all those people who are who do business with Solana, right? And then here's the really interesting thing that I found, right? When I look deeper into these actors, right? Danielle Sesta from Frog Nation was involved. If I asked anyone at Samsung and I told them, "Do you know who this character is?" Zero people, those clueless people, those poor clueless people at Samsung have any idea about what this kind of means for this hackathon, right? Oh, but don't worry, Samsung. I'm going to be educating you guys, so don't worry. I hope you learned something today, right? If you knew this already, I can kind of it's possible they knew about this because I looked at what their actual specific interest in and Riptide is, and they're not investing in it. They're not sponsoring any DeFi uh, projects. They're going into gaming, right? And I think they might someone at Samsung or someone might have told Samsung about what was going on in during this hackathon, and that might have been a reason why Samsung stayed away from this. I'm not sure 100%, right? Either someone told them about this, or if they got lucky, because I'm going to tell the people at Samsung about this, right? If they don't know this, right? Uh, Soul Rise was involved, Sabers was involved, and you go down here, right? This moron at Solar Eco Fund, F minus tier V Solana VC was involved. You had a lot of weird, sketchy people, and then here's where the sketch level goes to the max. Merlin from Magic Internet Money was involved. How sketchy is that? Why am I saying this is super sketchy stuff? Well, look at this article. Who's Danielle Sesta? Danielle Sesta's reputation has taken a hit over last week because of everyone knows. I talked about this on my channel, the Ethereum debacle with Sifu, right? He was a criminal basically, and he basically led, right, one of the most massive exchange collapses at Quadriga. Sifu was behind that, right? And Danielle knew about Sifu's past, right? He knew, and yet he took him on, right? Danielle's in charge of Frog Nation, right? And he was involved with Frog Nation, and Merlin was mentioned as part of the people who were implicated in this scandal, right? So Zach, everybody knows what Zach found out about Sifu, right? And how this disgraced, right, Sifu was involved with Danielle, right? Danielle knew about Sifu's criminal past, took him on. People found out thanks to Zach. Zach doing Lord's work, right? Doing Lord's work. Thank you so much for your investigative work, Zach. Shout out to you. And then people were like, holy shit, Wonderland is disgraced. Wonderland is disgraced, right? So, well, who was the guy who was Sifu? Omar Danani, a serial criminal who spent 18 months in U.S. federal prison on conspiracy to commit credit and bank card fraud in 2005, burglary, grand larceny, and computer fraud in 2007. He changed his name to Omar Patron and then to Michael Patron, right? So he was in charge of a $700 million treasury despite all of his sketchy shit. This was all green lighted by Danielle. Now, what's the connection to Merlin here from Magic Internet Money? Amazing stuff. You just do a little bit of digging. You just do a little bit of digging, and then you'll see all the dirty hands that are involved in this. It's just insane, right? It's absolutely insane, right? So later, people found out about some popsicle finance hack, right? There was a popsicle finance hack that was coordinated by some people who are involved with this Italian crypto group called Terra Bitcoin, managed by Paolo Barai, right? Now, look at what this article says here. The screenshots show a member using the alias Merlin, right? And this guy's talking about something that happened with Bitfinex, right? And clarifying to the group exactly who the person behind the Merlin username was. For those who didn't get it, we have the friend Giancarlo Devasini, the CFO of Bitfinex, right? And Devasini goes by the name Merlin. So again, you have some dirty ass hands, right? Danielle Sesta, Devasini, aka Merlin, who were involved, right? This guy doesn't even post his name here because all you have to do is Google all of the sketchy shit that MIM and their whole cadre, their whole cabal, I should describe it as a cabal, right? All of these dirty hands were involved with this convergence hackathon, right? It doesn't take a lot of digging to find this kind of stuff out, right? I tell my subscribers all the time, right? I'm the most honest person in Solana. I'm trying to be different from all the other dirty shit that I see, right, in Solana as someone who is the first Solana YouTuber, right? I've studied and I've observed and I've watched and I know the actors involved, and it's extremely revealing and it's extremely insightful as someone who invests in Solana to know and be aware of these kinds of things. Now, Samsung, did Samsung know of all of these ties that this convergence hackathon had? Again, I just said most likely they did not, but it is possible that someone tipped off Samsung, right? Maybe someone told Samsung about all the actors who were involved in this, and they were like, holy shit, we are not going to have Samsung involved with something like this, with these kinds of people involved. Now, what does this say about the people who are involved with this hackathon? Well, everyone here is now associated, right, with, again, these kinds of people, right? Merlin, right? AKA Devasani. I think his name was Devasani, right? What's his name? Uh yeah, it was Devasani, right? I think so. Merlin, right? Merlin was involved, right? And now you have Danielle Sesta, right, who has some dirty hands as well, right? So again, the company you keep, it says a lot about this, right? So you had two really sketchy people involved with this. You had extremely sketchy VCs in Solana, right? Some extremely sketchy VCs like Bill, right? Solar Eco Fund, right? So you had a lot of these kinds of people involved with this, right? And that is very interesting. Was that the reason? Now, this is very interesting. Just think about this. Was that the reason that Solana immediately came out with the new hackathon? Not, I think, like just a month or just 2 months after Convergence was announced. It is very possible. I think Solana had no idea how much people know about the people involved in Solana and all the associates, right? Uh, w- People know, right? Solana, I don't know like how much, Solana puts into, quality control with the people that they decide to associate themselves with. But this is not a good look for Solana. I can tell you that much. That I can tell you that much right now, right? So if someone tipped off Samsung, right, good for Samsung because they're not, going to be associated with this hackathon. Clearly, right? They decided to associate themselves with Riptide, but they still have that connection because they decided to do business with Solana. So these are the kinds of actors that Samsung kind of indirectly are now tied to, and that's the truth. Samsung people, Samsung 사람들 잘 들으세요. You people over there, right? So you had this, right? By the way, if you're curious about the projects, I am looking at the projects here. You can look at the dev post and then you can see the projects here, right? Um, Again, you see it right here. Frog Nation, Daniel Sesta, right? And then these people are going to be talking about the future of DeFi. Well, before you talk about the future of DeFi, how about looking at the past? The smart people know this now, right? The people who watch my channel, they have this extra bit of information that they can keep to themselves as they decide to invest in Solana DeFi, right? We're keeping a very close eye on things. I don't know if these people, right, know how much we know. They should know how much we know, though. It's going to be relevant to their strategy as well as they move on, right? They can only play their games for so long. I've put everyone in Solana on notice a long ass time ago, right? I called everyone out in Solana, and things have got to change, Solana. All right. So again, uh, very interesting thing that I think very few people were aware about when it comes to the Samsung move with Riptide, right? That very few people knew about that, right? But I had to put it out there because there is a connection, right? So it's not it was never anything that I had concrete evidence to prove, but the timing is just very peculiar. The timing is very interesting, right? How they immediately came out with this. Again, information asymmetry is just massive in crypto, right? We retail investors have a very vague, cloudy idea of what really goes on behind closed doors, right? You have a lot of back room kind of deal making stuff that goes on, right? People shake hands behind closed doors. We are not privy to that kind of information. We, as smart investors, we try to accrue and accumulate as much knowledge as we can when we invest. That's how we become smart investors, right? My channel is to educate investors and help them make sound investment decisions. This is all going to be part of their calculus, right? And if you think I'm not going to tell this in Korean to my Korean subscribers later who want to know, of course they're going to want to know. 물론 우리 한국인 구독자들이 나중에 이거 다 이제 물어볼 거 저한테 무슨 내용이었는지 정확히 몰랐으면, right? But anyways, now that I got that out of the way, this Riptide hackathon that was announced, right? This is basically the next thing in the vein of Ignition, right? So this is taking the mantle of Ignition. Ignition completed a while ago, right? So I basically put out the first Ignition video on YouTube. Right, I heard about it and I covered it a very long time ago, right? This is the very first Solana Ignition hackathon video on YouTube, and I covered this a very long time ago when it came out. Right, some interesting DeFi projects did come out of it for sure. some interesting things that came out, right? A lot of them are still building low key, right? So this is basically the next one, right? Solana Riptide. The wave is coming. You can read about the details here. Now, when you go down, so today's broadcast is going to be focusing on this one very interesting part of it, right? Samsung has an interest in this hackathon. So, what's their interest? I just mentioned it. Gaming. They want to get involved. They want to sponsor some Solana gaming projects, right? Um, the people who know anything about Solana gaming, right? They know that Solana gaming projects have massive, massive failures. They have failed miserably. Solana gaming has turned out to be all VC pump and dump shit projects, right? Uh, I put up the first Solana, like one of the first Solana gaming videos on YouTube. I put up the first DeFi Land video on YouTube. I put up the first Aurora video on YouTube here, right? Last year, way early last year. They turned out to be complete disasters. Complete disasters. Now, in hindsight, I've said this so many times on my broadcast. I understand why these projects turned out to be terrible, terrible gaming projects. I uploaded their first YouTube videos. I got no thanks from these guys. They ran to the VCs and they ran to some sketchy ass influencers and they used those guys to coordinate a pump and dump on their tokens. And in hindsight, right? In hindsight, it makes sense that they would have to rely on those kinds of influencers and VCs to fundraise and promote their projects, right? And it always struck me, I've said this to my subscribers so many times. It always struck me as odd as how they did not do anything with me, right? When I was promoting them before everyone else was. I mean, it's just very odd because I'm the first Solana YouTuber. Again, I can see the kinds of moves that these projects and these teams make in Solana, and it helps me to determine which ones are going the VC pump and dump route, which ones are going the legitimate Solana projects route. Uh, if you want to know the ratio, it's not very good, right? In terms of legitimate projects, it's very few. There's very few legitimate projects in Solana, right? I keep very close track of these projects that come out of Solana, right? I watch them very closely, right? No one else who does the kind of analysis on Solana that I do, right? That's why my subscribers tune in, especially my Korean ones who don't know much about Solana. They're curious about my opinion, right? So I love doing what I do, right? This is very fulfilling to me. It's very satisfying to me, right? Now, I think what happened, if I had to speculate, Samsung realized that Solana gaming is extremely, extremely underdeveloped. Even Star Atlas did not come out with an alpha, a playable alpha, right? So nothing in Solana gaming apparently has impressed Samsung. Samsung saw that opportunity to sponsor their own gaming projects because of thanks to their connections in first of all, they have they basically run an entire country. Samsung runs Korea, right? Samsung runs Korea. They have a lot of connections here. They have connections to all the major Korean gaming studios, I'm sure. I don't really play Korean games, so I don't know exactly what their involvement with gaming in Korea is, right? I'm not really a big gamer, right? I used to play games a lot, but not anymore, really, right? So they are going to leverage. If I just had to guess what Samsung has in mind here with this move, is they're going to leverage a lot of their connections and the money. Of course, they have their own VC arm, and I'm going to be looking at their VC arm. So they have a separate VC arm called Samsung Next, which I'm following. And there's some very interesting people who are involved with their VC arm, but we'll come to this in a second, right? So this is their VC arm, if you didn't know, right? All the different subsidiaries of Samsung. Samsung is just they have their tentacles in everything, right? They have their tentacles in everything in Korea, right? Um, so they realized These guys are the thing with Lightspeed Ventures with Amy, I believe, right? And they have the FTX fund, right? So Samsung is involved definitely with this fund that was launched by Lightspeed in coordination with Lightspeed and Amy and all those people over at FTX, right? So FTX, Samsung, Solana. It's like a triangle. When you see something like this, you should think about who's involved, right? Clearly, it's a revolving door of these people who are involved in these respective firms, right? So Samsung's going to be leveraging their connections with developers, gaming developers, and then they're going to bankroll some of these projects, and they're going to try to make money by sponsoring and looking at projects that come out of this Riptide gaming category, and they're going to try to make some money off of that. I mean, that's the only interest that they have. How do I know this? Well, it's not Samsung per se. I mean, it is Samsung, right? It is Samsung, but the VC arm, the subsidiary of Samsung that's involved with this is Samsung Next, right? So again, this is not Lee Jae-yong, right? This is not Lee Jae-yong. He doesn't give a shit about this, right? He doesn't know anything about blockchain gaming, right? Lee Jae-yong doesn't know anything about this. He's got his VC people looking into this, right? And that is Samsung Next. I'm following them, right? Now here's the interesting thing about Samsung Next. You go through their Twitter, you can see the kinds of things that they tweet about, right? They have interest in many different things other than blockchain, right? Blockchain is just one thing, right? Uh, they sponsor a lot of a lot of stuff. They sponsor a lot of stuff, right? Um, so if you're wondering, like, what are they like? What kinds of things are they involved with? Well, they're involved with AI research, fintech, health tech. I think, ironically, there's some kind of company called Terra. That's a health tech company, right? Infrastructure and media tech. So they have their tentacles in a lot of different things, right? This is what they say. Their mission statement is here, right? Samsung Next, the VC arm of Samsung, says our portfolio reflects our team's dedication to shaping the future. You should interpret this as we're going to seed some Solana gaming projects because the Solana gaming market is awful. There's nothing good in Solana gaming, but we're going to try to see what we can do and see if we can make some money off a partnership with Solana and TX and make some money. That's what their interest is, right? That's all it is, right? There's nothing complicated about Samsung's interest here. Now, who like what's their history, right? What is Samsung Next history in terms of funding crypto projects, right? They were involved with Axie Infinity. Me personally, I don't give a shit about gaming, crypto gaming, but I just see these guys all time and time again as I do these broadcasts and I research things, right? So these guys are involved with a lot of things, right? The Axie Infinity guy, I think his name is Gio. Jiho was speaking at the Upbit conference last year, right? So these guys have a presence in Korea, obviously, because they have a big Korean presence, right? If Samsung is behind it, right? Samsung probably put a lot of efforts into promoting this in Korea, right? That would make sense, right? They've invested in FTX. So Samsung has invested in FTX. They recently announced this Metaplex thing, right? So Samsung was involved with Metaplex, right? The NFT thing, right? Now, what does this mean? Is Metaplex going to come out? They're going to announce an IDO or something. I Anytime you have this kind of money that gets involved with something in crypto, you should basically expect some kind of IDO BS announcement where they're trying to make some money off retail, right? In my opinion, it's not 100%. I don't know if they're going to tokenize, but it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me, right? If later they try to fundraise, right? Do some kind of fundraise, right? They're involved with Sandbox. I think this is a metaverse thing. I don't know exactly, right? I just heard about them a lot, right? Sandbox, or it says gaming on Ethereum, right? So they have some interest in crypto, right? But you can see very clearly what their interests are. They're very conservative. They're extremely conservative, in my opinion, right? They have a very narrow focus. They don't spread out their money too thin. I can see kind of what their strategy is here based on this, right? They're mostly interested in gaming. They've had some successful gaming investments, right? With this, and I'll just assume Sandbox is doing well because everyone's talking about gaming, right? FTX was very successful, so I guess they have an interest in FTX. That turned out well for them. And Metaplex, right? I mean, they have a pretty decent track record so far, right? They kind of go the concentrated bets route, right? They're not doing all this weird Solana VC style spray and pray, know nothing, dummy style investing. Those guys have no idea what they're doing about. Samsung, I think, is going a different route. You can see they're focusing on just certain categories, and that's all they're doing, right? They're getting into gaming, right? They're into gaming and NFTs, right? Gaming and NFTs, apparently, right? Um, Apparently, Samsung has no interest with getting their hands dirty with things like DeFi. So it's, I guess they realize like what kind of shady shit goes down, right? So they're staying away from that for the most part. So I guess that's what they're doing for now. For now, right? Who are some of the people involved with Samsung Next, right? David Lee, I think I just followed him because I saw he was the head, right? I think this is his Twitter here, right? Yeah, David Lee, right? So this is his Twitter here. It says investments M&A at Samsung Next. We support Axie Infinity, Dapper Labs, FTX Official, Super Rare, DSRV Labs, Off Chain Labs. Um, so this is the guy who's in charge of the team there. So this dude over here, David Lee. And then they have a couple other people: Brandon Kim, Eel Miller, Raymond Liao, Amy Lee. I don't know most of these people. Most of these people, their names do not ring a bell, right? Now, there is one person who I have been following on Twitter for a while, and this is the other person. So I just followed David as I was researching this. Joanne Kim, she has had involvement in Solana for quite a while. This person here. So I've been following her for a while, and I think she was one of the original people who was involved with Solana from a very long time ago, as far as I know, right? As far as I know. But so I am following this person on Twitter as well, right? So there are some people who I'm keeping a track of, right? Keeping an eye on from Samsung Next, right? So this is the Samsung Next team. I don't know much about these guys, right? But clearly they want to get involved with Solana on some level, right? Uh, Metaplex, again, this was recently announced. Now they're coming out with this hackathon thing with Riptide, right? So what's going on? What's going on with their with their VC arm? They're kind of getting deeper into Solana, but very slowly. They're not just diving headfirst into Solana. They're keeping their investments very conservative. It makes sense if you think about like Korean chaebol culture, right? Korean chaebol culture is extremely conservative. They're not going to be doing shit that is going to disgrace their name and make them idiots in Korea. Korean culture, Korean society is all about saving face, right? If they get their hands, I mean, they obviously the Samsung has done some sketchy stuff, right? But if they, get involved with the wrong things, blockchain, it could really make them look bad. So I think they're taking it very slow with their investment strategy, right? That's how I'm looking at it, right? So who are the other players involved? Well, Monkey DAO, Mango, Google's involved, Jump Crypto's involved. Jump is just one of the massive people in Solana. They've got interests everywhere in Solana, right? They had interests in convergence. I've already talked about that. Convergence. They had an interest in convergence. Of course, they have another huge interest in Riptide, right? So interesting that you see Samsung and their involvement with Riptide here, right? Um, I don't know, uh, you know, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with uh, uh, Samsung later in the future, right? Do they have plans for further involvement in Solana? I don't know. Right? I don't talk to the Samsung people. I don't talk to the Samsung Next people. But clearly, they see some kind of deficiencies in Solana gaming, and they want to take advantage of that. Right? They think they can grow a better project than what we already see now in Solana gaming, which is to say, almost zero. Right? Almost zero. Right? In a way, I mean, in a way, when you see these kinds of hackathons, they all know that there are gaps to be filled in the ecosystem, and they're still looking for projects. They're still trying to shake carrots in front of developers and have them come over to Solana when they sponsor things like this, right? So again, you just got to keep a close eye what comes out of Riptide. Just like I covered, um, the first hackathon that I covered on my channel was Solana Summer or Solana Season, right? I covered Solana Season a very long time ago. Might have put up the first Solana Season video on YouTube or one of the first ones, right? I was looking at Solana Season very early on, right? Very early on. And then when the winners were announced, I look at the Solana Season winners like a long time ago here, right? These are the Solana Season winners here, right? So I've looked at all major hackathons, right? Because I want to see what kinds of projects come out of them, right? Um, so that is what is going on with this announcement here with Riptide. So there you go, February 2nd to March 17th. So I guess it's ongoing. Teams are all building now. So I guess they'll be building and then submitting their projects at the end of the March 17th. So at the end of about a month from now. So about 1 month, right? If you're interested in this hackathon, go ahead and check it out. Right, there's a lot of involvement here. Right, a lot of these founders are getting involved. They want integrations. They're all looking for integrations here. Right, Chainlink has an interest here, I guess. Right, who else? Mango has an interest. Options has an interest, right? Slope Wallet has an interest. Solon has. There's just lots of interest. Clearly, these current teams, right, in Solana, they want to see if they can find good builders and add them uh, to their teams, right? Are they going to go the M&A route just like the recent Options and Tap Finance announcement? I don't know that part, right? That part we'll just have to find out. Right? But clearly, a lot of these teams they need right better. They need to build out their teams. I guess they're looking to build out their teams, right? Clearly, when I see this kind of stuff, right? So who are some of the people? Well, I don't know. Let's see. David, I just mentioned David, right? So I guess David from Samsung. Amy, right? So she's the one who launched that fund, that massive FTX fund, right? Anatoly, obviously, Anatoly is here. Kyle from Multicoin is here. Ansem is here, which is odd, right? Ansem is here. Armani, Defiance, Arthur, this Joker, right, is here. There's still a lot of Jokers who are involved in Riptide just by going down this list here, right? Tons of Jokers here. Tons of Jokers, right? Grace from Orca. Now that's very interesting because my subscribers they know Orca and how dismal it has performed investment wise, right? It's at like it was at like $2 or $3 when it listed at $2 or $3, like almost zero progress in Orca, right? I don't know if the emission screwed them or if they couldn't manage the treasury or what happened, but something went terribly wrong with Orca, but they're getting involved here. Mango has an interest. There's a lot of projects in Solana that have an interest here, right? Lots of developers are here. Friction is involved, right? Pith is involved. Slope is involved. Um, Jupiter, aka Mercurial. It is very funny to me how Ben is going with Jupiter and not Mercurial here. I guess they've clearly retired the Mercurial brand because it was so disgraced, right? Like I don't know what like how much like when people look at these things, right? Do they understand who exactly what all the interests are? Do they know all the people involved? Do they know the history of all the people involved? I really don't know. Like honestly don't know what percent that that my subscribers know. Like how much of this information do they really know? I'm not sure. But I'm here to educate them. They need to know these things. Delphi has an interest. Anderson Horowitz, I guess, has an interest. There's lots of interest, uh, big interest in this hackathon, right? So Ayush is here, S- Dylan for Saber is here, right? So some interesting, very interesting things. ROK Capital is also involved. They also have an interest here, right? Again, I've shat on ROK Capital because they are one of the worst Solana VCs of all time. They're just terrible investors, and I pointed out the kinds of shenanigans that they were involved in. They are not very astute investors either. They don't know what the hell they're doing either, right? They have no idea what they're doing either, right? But again, like uh, you have a like just a conspicuous lack of guys like Danielle Sesta and Merlin, right? Those people are their faces are nowhere to be found here. That's very interesting. So they didn't want. I mean, Solana, I'm gonna talk to you. Austin Videra, Communications, Dominic, whoever is involved. Bartos. I don't know who's involved in BD. I don't know who's in charge there. Right? There's just so many people over there up at the top. You guys over there. Uh, at least you had some kind of meeting about who you are going to involve yourselves with this hackathon. Clearly, you don't want to besmirch Riptide here by excluding those kinds of unsavory characters. So good job by you know putting putting lipstick on this pig after the last convergence thing kind of went sour, right? That one went a little awry, right? So hopefully this one turns out a little bit better than convergence, right? Um, I wish all the developers, all the people who are involved with this hackathon, I wish them well. I hope they do well, right? And obviously, just like I'm looking at the projects that come out of convergence, I'll be looking at the projects that come out of Solana, right? I'll be looking at them as well, right? Okay, so there you go. 우리 구독자들이 이제 뭐 궁금한 거 있으면 저한테 물어보면 제가 어, 대답해 줄게요. So if my subscribers, I'll switch over to the live translate now. If my subscribers have a question, 우리 구독자들이 질문 있으면 저한테 질문하면 제가 해주고 없으면 그냥 Solana 소식 조금 보고 끝낼게요. So if my subscribers they have some questions, I'll be looking at some Solana news, and then I'll be finishing up. Right? 오잉 빨리 시작하네요. 네, 조금 빨리 시작했어요. 조금 빨리 시작했어요. 와, 이건 따로 공부하고 나서 디코 방에서 물어봐야 할 듯 싶은데요. 네. 아니 뭐 지금 뭐 이제 제가 지금까지 이제 방송한 거 이제 뭐 궁금한 거 더 자세한 설명 원하시면 제가 지금 설명해 줄게요, 한국말로. 일단은 이제 영어로 이제 전달해 줘야 되니까 왜냐면 이제 그 송아라 윗사람들이 많이 들을 거고 나중에 이제 삼성 분들도 아마 많이 들을 거예요. 물론 삼성 방송이니까 삼성 사람들도 많이 볼 거고 왠지 얘도 볼 거고 물론 여기 그 관계자들 다 이제 나중에 볼 것 같아요 왠지. 딱 봐도, 딱 봐도. Okay, so go over the news here. See what's going on. 큰 소식은 없네요 보니까. I don't think there's any big news. Barry tweeted. Barry가 트윗했네요 보니까. Ben Sparango is now trying to talk about this shit. I just noticed this kind of hilarious shit in Solana. These people did not care about this kind of BS when they were pumping and dumping these projects. I was the only one who was talking about this stuff. Like none of these people in Solana were talking about this kind of stuff until I brought it up. 진짜 이런 이제 Solana 사람들이 이런 샬라샬라 하면 저는 진짜 웃겨요. 제가 가장 먼저 이제 이런 이제 말씀 다 했고 이 작년 뭐지? 작년 어때였지? 이거 작년 10월에 제가 그런 말씀 다 하고 있었고 얘네들 이상한 VC들 되게 많이 해야 한다고 우리 구독자들한테 분명히 말씀했고 나중에 그냥 완전 세게 나왔고 여기에 이제 여기 동영상에 세게 나왔는데 여기 그 설에 제가 1일 날부터 이런 했는데 뭐 이런 거 보면 전 되게 웃겨요. 제가 먼저 이제 말씀하니까 얘네들이 이제 하는 건 되게 웃겨요. 이제 진짜 주도되고 싶으면 이제 이런 사람들보다 더 가장 빨리 먼저 그런 이제 그 행동으로 이제 보여줘야 돼요. 나는 진짜 솔직한 사람이고 믿을 수 있는 사람이고 근데 얘네들이 다 나중에 이런 거 이제 억지로 하니까 저는 진짜 웃겨요 이런 거 보면 솔직히 말하면. Right? I mean, none of these people were saying this kind of stuff until I was talking about this real shit in Solana, right? I mean, this is just it's damage. It's a combination of damage control. They're trying to cover their own asses, right? Um, that's all it is, right? That's all it is. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a lot of things. 뭐 큰 소식은 없으니까 오늘 뭐 12시 할게 12시까지 할게요. We'll go to 12 today. There's not a lot of questions. 질문 많이 없으니까 12시까지 하고 끝날게요, 오늘은. Let's see. 마운틴 쿡님 어서 오세요. 허블이라는 솔랜드와 비슷한 대출 플랫폼이 나왔는데 솔라나 기반 USDH를 만들었다고 합니다. 솔라나 기반 스테이블 코인 만든 거 유명하다고 할 수 있나요? 루나처럼요? 사람들 구독자들이 계속 똑같은 질문하네. 마운틴 쿡님, 제가 허브 커버한 지 되게 오래됐어요. I covered Hubble a very, very long time ago. If you want to know my opinions on Hubble, 제가 이제 Hubble 어떻게 생각하는지 궁금하면 이 동영상 보세요. 여기에 My thoughts on Hubble 이제 저희 Hubble에 대한 생각 여기부터 보세요. 이제 제가 어떤 인플루언서들이 홍보해 주는지 일단 이런 인플루언서들이 이제 이상하게 홍보해 주고 이제 뭐 다 설명해 줘요. 우리 구독자들한테 이제 궁금하면. 그냥 쉽게 설명하면 저는 공식적으로는 투자 안 해요. 이런 프로젝트. 근데 다 알아서 이제 각각 이제 파악하고 투자하세요. So one of my Korean subscribers, he wanted to know about Hubble. I already covered Hubble a very long time ago. I covered them multiple times on my channel. 어, 한 번도 아니었고 몇 번 Hubble 봤어 옛날부터. So if you want to know how I feel about Hubble, just check out this broadcast here. 이때 이제 방송한 거 보세요. 만약에 Hubble 궁금하면. Um, not going to endorse Hubble on my channel. 저희 같은 경우는 Hubble을 공식적으로 추천 안 할 거예요. You know, I gotta remind my subscribers, right? 우리 투자자들한테 이제 다시 알려줘야 돼요. 이거 팁 하나. 이제 VC들 이제 그 캡 테이블 보면 그 VC들 이제 나오는 거 이제 그런 발표 나올 때 이런 이제 발표 나올 때 그 캡 테이블 보고 투자하세요, 제발. Look at the cap table, see the kinds of actors involved. If you see people who you don't like, don't get involved. There's no reason to rush into an investment, right? If you don't like the people involved, and that's all you have to do. 이제 그 사람들이 이제 우리 투자자들이 막 들어가지 마세요. 좀 공부하고 잘 생각하고 잘 전략 짜고 그때 이제 투자해요, 제발 우리 투자자들. Yeah, my channel is all about educating and helping people invest wisely. 우리 투자자들 위해 제가 이렇게 이제 교육시키는 거예요. 아무리 봐도. Chusungjin, tell me about wormhole hacking. I already talked about the wormhole hacking in the beginning of the broadcast. 이제 wormhole 질문 하나 있었는데 이미 제가 영어로 커버했는데 이제 물어봤으니까 제가 알려줄게요. So the thing that happened with wormhole, there was a huge hack. I already talked about it. 얘네 어떤 버그 때문에 코드가 잘못돼 있어서 어떤 사람이 그 200개 ETH 정도 이제 훔쳐갔어요. 그래서 250 million 정도 이제 날라갔고 120,000 ETH 이만큼 이제 훔쳐갔어 어떤 해커가. 그래서 그 돈을 이제 날라갔는데 이제 점프 크립토가 이제 들어와서 점프 크립토 이제 걔네들 돈 많으니까 얘네들 이제 VC니까 얘네들이 그 돈을 그냥 바로 여기 다시 여기 넣었어요. 그래서 웜홀 이제 사람들이 이제 자기 자산 다 이제 그대로 있는데 어떤 사람들은 이제 비판하는 사람들은 이거 보고 엄청 이제 위험하다고 말씀했어요. 이제 뭐 크로스 체인 같은 이제 인프라 이제 만드는 중인데 이런 이제 사건이 터지면 물론 이제 크로스 체인 그런 비전이 뭐 당장 뭐 지금 뭐 그런 이제 크로스 체인 앱 이제 인프라 만드는데 예를 들어 쉽게 설명하면 이거 왜 중요한지 궁금하면 이런 인프라가 이제 다 잘못돼 있으면 미래가 이제 크로스 체인이 될 수가 없어요, 한마디로. 그게 이제 가장 중요한 이제 포인트예요. 그래서 그런 거 이제 생각하면서 이제 투자해야 돼요. 예를 들면 나중에 이제 크로스 체인 앱들이 생겨요. 근데 어떤 이제 앱은 이제 크로스 체인 보통 이제 제가 솔라나 같은 경우 보면 솔라나 디파이 같은 경우 보면 이제 프로젝트들이 뭐 걔네들이 뭐 나중에 이제 크로스 체인 가고 싶다 뭐 그런 샬라샬라 그런 말씀이 되게 많아요, 로드맵 보면. 그러니까 예를 들면 이거 하나 보여줄게요, 여기. 뭐 최근에 이거 사인 옵션스 발표했는데 여기 보면 이제 사인 옵션스에 나중에 Q4 이거 여기 나중에 보면 Q4에 얘네들이 이제 크로스 체인으로 가고 싶대요. 여기 보여줄게요. Take sign options cross chain. 그래서 생각해 봐요. 투자자 입장으로 생각하면 우리는 다 투자자이잖아요. 로드맵에 이런 발표가 있어. 그래서 투자자들이 이런 거 보고 이런 로드맵 보고 이제 신나고 '아 와 이거 크로스 체인으로 가면 진짜 이제 뭐 이더리움 뭐 다른 이제 유동성 이제 다 이제 서로 통해서 이제 다 이제 그렇게 쓸 수 있는데 이런 거 보면 이런 거 보면 쪼금 더 현실적으로 생각해야 돼요. 이런 웜홀 이제 그 해킹 같은 거 당하면. 물론 이런 건 이제 2022 년까지는 안 될 거고 아마 미뤄야 돼요. 이제 뭐 검토 따로 받고 이제 그런 이제 시간이 쪼끔 필요해요. 그냥 막 이렇게 달릴 수가 없어 이런 프로토콜들이. 이제 한마디로 그 개발이 이제 엄청 이제 느려지는 거예요, 한마디로. 그래서 물론 투자자 입장으로 생각하면 그만큼 더 천천히 투자해야 돼요. 그렇게 이제 전략을 짜야 돼요, 전략 짤 거면. 만약에 이제 물론 이제 사인 옵션스 같은 경우에 투자하고 싶으면. 예 이제 제가 이런 이제 방식을 이제 알려주는 거예요. 제가 이런 거 볼 때 그리고 솔라나 이제 물론 첫 솔라나 유튜버이고 솔라나 투자한 지 되게 오래됐고 제가 이제 많이 집중하는 부분이 있어요, 솔라나에. 그래서 물론 제가 이제 다 배운 걸 그냥 그대로 우리 구독자들한테 그냥 전달해 주는 거예요. 저희 개인 의견. 그래서 개인 의견 알려주고 우리 구독자들도 다 이제 지혜로운 투자자 되고 싶었으니까 다 같이 그래서 이제 같이 그냥 우리 구독자들한테 이거 전달해 주는 거 한마디로. 그래서 물론 웜홀 이제 그거 몰랐으면 더 뭐 자세히 설명 보고 싶으면 되게 자세히 이해할 수 있어. 뭐지 샘이 그거 되게 자세히 코드까지 다 뭐 다 받고 아 샘 트윗 뭐였지? 아무튼 어떤 개발자 한 명이 그거 코드까지 다 이제 reverse engineering 하고 코드까지 다 받고 이제 그 정확한 구체적 설명 그분 볼 수 있어요. 저도 이거 트윗했는데 언제 트윗했는지 모르니까 그거 이제 궁금하면 그거 보세요. 그렇게 자세한 설명 알고 싶으면. 제가 이제 설명해 준 건 그냥 대충으로 진짜 대충 그냥 간단하게 쉽게 이해할 수 있기 위해 설명해 준 거예요, 만약에 궁금했으면. 저도 그거 wormhole hacking 그거 보고 깜짝 놀랐죠, 물론. 완전 놀랐죠, right? I was just as surprised as you were when I found out about the wormhole thing, right? Let me see if I can find that post. 그 정확한 포스트 찾을 수 있는지 제가 보여줄게요, 만약에. Maybe here 여기였던 것 같아요. Maybe this here. Smart contracts 이거 보세요. 이 트윗 보세요. 여기 smart contracts. 저희 이제 트윗 기록 보고 이거 한번 읽어보세요. 여기 되게 자세히 이제 설명해요. 여기. Look this tweet, this specific tweet that I liked. If you want to know the actual like tech behind it, 이제 전문 뭐 기술 같은 거 궁금하면 여기 보세요. 다음 질문으로 갈게요. Go to next question. 항상 감사합니다. Okay, 다른 질문은 없네요. Okay. So there's no other questions. I will we're going to 12. I said we're going to 12. 오늘은 12시까지 한다고 했으니까 for the people who watch later, if you missed this, enjoy the replay. 놓친 구독자들은 replay 보세요. 처음에는 초반에는 다 영어로 했으니까 영어 잘 못하는 분들은 이제 어, 자세한 설명 필요하시면 저한테 따로 연락 주세요. 제가 설명해 줄게요. 웜 웜홀 복구 받았습니다. 설마 설마 이러퍼기 님이 거기 돈 날라갔다가 다시 들어왔어요? 그 돈이? 점크립토 덕분에? 대박이겠네요. 만약에 1억 벌기 님이 그거 당했으면 그 나쁜 놈이 훔쳐갔으면 자기 자산을 훔쳐갔으면 대박이네. 리플레이 많이 봐 네. 초반 보세요, 초반에. 제가 그때 이제 삼성이 솔라나에 정확히 무슨 관심이 있는지 그리고 되게 재미있는 관련된 얘기 많아요. 제가 이 기사도 봤고 이 기사 되게 재밌어요. 이 기사 찾아보세요. 여기에 되게 중요한 정보 되게 많아요, 여기. wormhole 트윗으로 연락하니깐 복구해 주더라요. 다행이네요, 걔네들 wormhole이. 걔네들 이제 책임지네요. 걔네들 wormhole 사람들이. 물론 이제 점프 크립토 이제 걔네들이 그 backing 하니까 걔네들이 돈 많은 놈들이니까 뭐 그렇게는 할 수 있죠. 어떻게 보면 걔네들. Makes you wonder like how deep is the war chest, right? How deep is jump crypto's war chest? 이제 어떻게 보면 걔네들 이제 그 jump crypto 걔네들 이제 금고가 걔네 돈 어 얼마나 있는지 되게 궁금해요. 엄청 궁금해요. 그런 거 이제 보면. 걔네들 그냥 되게 쿨하게 그 돈을 다 갚았어요. 그냥 되게 쿨하게. They have some very deep pockets. 걔네들 주머니가 엄청 깊어요, 걔네들. 솔라나 계열 대기업이라 다르긴 하네요. 생각해 봐요. 걔네들 이제 VC들끼리는 걔네들 다 서로 도와주죠. 도우권도 제가 트윗 봤는데 옛날에 도우권이 그 이제 그 UST 페그가 이제 망했었을 때 옛날에 한번 망했었을 때 바로 걔네 LP한테 부탁하고 걔네 LP가 바로 걔네들 그 엄청 돈 많이 바로 이제 송금해 줬잖아요. 똑같이 그 UST 걔네들도 이제 높은 사람들 많아요. 알아요. 많이 알아요, 걔네들도. 근데 진짜 되게 아이러니가 크죠. 걔네들이 뭐 탈중앙화 UST 돈 뭐 그런 거 뭐 그런 말씀하면서 이제 실제로는 걔네들 이제 배킹하는 사람들이 LP들이 다 이제 손 더러운 놈들인데 그런 거 보면 쪼금 웃기긴 웃겨요. 진짜 어떻게 보면 이 크립토 이제 전체에 이제 투자하면서 엄청 이제 조심스럽게 투자해야 돼요. 진짜 우리 같은 이제 일반인 투자자한테는 엄청 위험해요. 걔네들 윗사람들이 다 알고 우리는 거의 이제 정보가 잘 몰라요. 제발 조심하게 투자하세요, 우리 구독자들. 지혜롭게. 혹시 솔라나 페이는 리뷰 안 하시나요? 솔라나 페이 같은 경우도 봤는데 아니 뭐 그렇게 막 큰 저 그냥 개인적으로는 제가 그 큰 관심은 없었으니까 제가 따로 뭐 동영상 같은 건 안 올렸어요. 그냥 페이팔이랑 비슷해요. 이제 벤더들이 이제 솔라나 페이를 사용하면서 이제 똑같이 이제 뭐 카드나 뭐 페이팔이나 그런 이제 비슷한 역할로 만든 거예요, 한마디로. 그래서 뭐 그렇게 뭐 복잡한 설명도 필요 없고 굳이 저희 생각으론 Solana. So one of my Korean subscribers, they asked me about Solana Pay, and he asked me why I didn't make a separate video for it. I thought it was very simple. It didn't really need that much explanation. 뭐 그렇게 뭐 복잡한 개념은 아니니까. I mean, you can pay for things now, right? Using USDC, SPL. 그냥 되게 쉽게 설명하면 이제 벤더들이 USDC 그 스테이블 코인 솔라나 SPL 토큰 이제 USDC를 사용하면서 이제 그 돈 이제 낼 수 있으니까 뭐 그거 뭐 저 저희 같은 경우는 뭐 그냥 듣고 '아 그렇구나.'로 반응했어요. For me, I was just like, "Okay." I mean, it's not like groundbreaking, and I mean, it's just adoption is something that takes time. I mean, 뭐 우리 구독자들이 이거 보고 "와 이것 때문에 이제 뭐 나중에 제가 이마트에 장 보러 갈 때 이 Solana SPL로 계산할 수 있다." 뭐 그 정도는 아니에요. 그냥 항상 항상 우리 투자자들한테 그냥 현실적으로 생각하세요. 현실적으로. 항상 현실적으로 생각하세요. 오케이. 솔라나 페이랑 삼성페이 콜라보하면 좋겠네요. 뭐 저도 잘 몰라요. 뭐 나중에 뭐 어떻게 될 건지. 뭐 한국 시장 같은 경우는 뭐 차이 같은 거 있잖아. 테라가 이미 여기 자리 잡았잖아요. 한국 시장 같은 경우 이제 나중에 이제 하고 루나 뭐 걔네들이랑 뭐 경쟁되는 거 보면 이제 삼성페이하고 솔라나페이 뭐 그런 나중에 소식 나오면 직행 이제 경쟁자 되잖아요. 만약에 그런 상황이 되면 물론. 아무튼 테라 스테이블 코인 무너졌지 않아요? 테라 스테이블 코인은 뭐 디pegging 그 최근에 한번 그런 거 봤고 이제 그 알라메이다가 그 FTX의 그 perps 그거 short 이제 열었을 때 그때 이제 잠깐 봤죠. 그 걔네들이 이제 hedging 거요. 나중에 뭐 혹시라도 그 페그가 망하면 진짜 그거 보고 빵 터졌어요. 알라메이다가 그거 이제 short 열었던 거 개웃겼어요, 그거 보고. 스테이블이 0.9 달러까지 깨지더 네. 쪼끔 이제 쪼끔 그 디pegging 있었어요. 잠깐 그때 있었어요. 잠깐. 근데 도건 제가 금방 말씀했는데 걔네 이제 LP가 돈 많으니까 뭐 바로 줬나 봐요, LP들이. Okay. It's not a lot of questions. Not too many questions. I will see you guys during the weekend if something big happens. 이제 주말에 큰 소식 같은 거 있으면 제가 다시 방송할게요. 아니면 동영상 올려줄게요. By the way, before I finish, 끝나기 전에 제가 이제 Solana 그 티셔츠 하나 그 엑스트라 하나 받았는데 하나 더 있는데 만약에 Solana 티셔츠 관심 있으면 저한테 디스코드에 연락 주세요. 그 사이즈는 라지예요. 제가 하나 줄 수 있어요. 우리 구독자들한테. So 선착순이니까 가장 빨리 연락 주는 사람한테 줄게요. All right. Thank you so much for the people who came out. I'm sure there's gonna be some people who watch this later because they want to know what I had to say. 이제 나중에 이 리플레이 보는 분들이 왠지 많을 것 같아요. So for those people, enjoy the replay. If anyone at Samsung watches this later, 삼성 분이 나중에 보면 안녕하세요. 잘 보세요. 재밌게 보세요. 좋은 정보 많이 얻으세요. 삼성 분들. Hopefully I will see some of you guys in the future in person. 나중에 직접 만나고 싶어요. 그 삼성 사람들. All right, I will see you guys during the next one. 다음에 봬요. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. 다 좋은 밤, 좋은 주말 보내세요. 우리 구독자들.